I would like to acknowledge the Heritage Committee. We have Rick Steffensen. I don't know if you're here. If you are, please put up your hand. Al Timko, Russ Cabrera, Randy Bialik, Art Linke, Karen Schultz, and Sean Michaels is the RM representative. I'd like to make special note that this is thanks to a heritage grant that we received from the province, and we'd like to thank Nicola Spazoff from Manitoba Sport, Cultural and Heritage Office for assisting through the heritage grants to make this day happen. There are some guests here from other municipalities. We have Councillor Dave Horbus, Councillor Glenn Bassaravich, and we have Don Mazer from the town of Beausejour. Don, where are you? Don. I'm going to call up Don to bring greetings on behalf of the town of Beausejour. He's got a little something there he wants to say. Whoa.
Fellow council members and honored guests, and ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a pleasure and a privilege to be here today representing the mayor, council, and the people of Beausejour to celebrate with you this very momentous occasion, to recognize those families who have contributed to the heritage of who, what, and what we are today. We in Beausejour have prospered and benefited from the economic and social interactions of these families for many years. These people have carved out a niche in the island of Brokenhead by having the foresight and fortitude and resilience to create a better life for themselves and their children. They pioneered little villages and hamlets, one-room schools, stores and post offices, churches, and small farms, and even some skating rinks. They cleared and worked the land with horse and plow and hard-earned sweat. Our community will forever be grateful for the contribution and volunteerism of our forefathers. So to the Arm of Brokenhead and the hard-working committee, we extend our deepest gratitude for this huge accomplishment. And to all the families being recognized today, you are truly, sincerely congratulated for the honor that is being bestowed upon you. Again, congratulations. Thank you very much.
Watch your step there, Don. Our MLA is unable to be here today, but he has a prepared message, and his constituency assistant will read this off for him. Peggy Wadley, can you please come?
Good afternoon, everybody. On behalf of MLA Wayne Wasco and the province of Manitoba, as the elected MLA representing the Lac Du Bonnet constituency, I would like to acknowledge the Rural Municipality of Brokenhead Municipal Heritage Advisory Committee for undertaking this incredible project. Your efforts to honor and recognize the heritage families of the Brokenhead community are truly appreciated. Congratulations to all the families celebrating 100 years or more of property ownership in the RM of Brokenhead. The Heritage Family Names Monument is a wonderful testament to the hard work and sacrifice of generations past and present and their contributions to the growth of our community. Thank you.
I'm Russ. This is Randy. I'm going to read from this book. So this was my mother's book. She actually was a Malinsky from Ladywood. And you know, I used to thumb through here. I spent a lot of my youth visiting the farm, the Poseshnik farm, the Malinsky farm, and around King's Corner. My grandparents lived in town, so even though I grew up in Winnipeg and I didn't move to Beausejour until 10 years ago, but 10 years ago I started reading this book in detail and to try and come up with the real stories. And so there's so much history in this book. How many people here have a copy of this book? All right, a lot of people. Go back and read some of it, but there are a lot of families are missing. A lot of families didn't actually create their history for this here, but what happened was somehow I established myself as being an historian, and I was invited in, I think it was in 2017, when the RM decided they were going to form a Manitoba Heritage Advisory Committee. And so I was invited to that meeting. Randy was invited to that meeting, and I think we're the only two representatives here right now. Rick Stephenson was our first president. He stepped down this year, and Al Timko is our current president. Both of them were unable to come today, so I give regrets for those two people. And what the RM of Brokenhead did, thanks to Brad for supporting the conception of the Heritage Advisory Committee, and they actually went ahead and created a whole bylaw to validate the establishment of the committee. And so we have some authority, you know, but we still have to say, can we, Brad? And some of our accomplishments or achievements over the years that we've been meeting included, we created a heritage website, that part of the RM website. If you were to do a search in Google, just Brokenhead Heritage, you will find that page. There's a lot of information on there. We spent a lot of time determining the heritage locations of schools, churches, cemeteries, and stores. And so just like the map that we gave out today with the heritage family names on it, we have maps that are heritage maps that locate all of these different heritage sites. We've also identified tourism sites, and we have a tourism version, and we've also spent some time identifying traditional road names. You know, like I go to the Sherwood maps and say, where did you get these names from? He said, well, from driving around and asking people. You know, so a lot of the names, the road names aren't there, but they are heritage names. That we also promoted involvement with the high school, and next year, and with COVID, put a stop to that, but we've actually started that program again. We have 2 high school students that are going to be involved with our committee in the fall. And then the identification of the Century Farms. And it all started, is Kenny Poseshnik here? Kenny Poseshnik. It's all his fault. Kenny's my first cousin, and so we were sitting having a couple of drinks in his little porch, attached to his house. It's not quite a porch. I look on the wall, and he's got this plaque, and it says Manitoba Century Farm. That was the first time I had ever heard of that, and I took that back to our committee, and then Randy, the alec here, started to run with that, and to try and educate people with the provincial program. Got the newspaper involved, I think smart. So Randy.
Good afternoon. I want to thank everybody here for proving what we did was right. We knew there was heritage, we knew there was history in the RM of Brokenhead. We wanted to prove it. We started, as Russ said, a long time ago, pre-COVID, trying to amass names of families who have been here for 100 years. We did this in conjunction with the 2020 150th anniversary of the province of Manitoba. So that's what the criteria was, people owning farmland in 1920. We went to land titles, we got all the 1,800 entries of parcels of property that were owned in the RM of Brokenhead. We correlated that to the 2020 land ownership maps. So that was how we got the names. Russ and I originally, we thought we were going to get 30, 35 names, something like that, of heritage farms. We actually got 101, which is really good. Now, I also want to encourage...
That's what we started with.
I also want to encourage you, this was the first step. If anybody wants to go and get provincially recognized for a Century Farm, there's applications here that will start you on the process of getting that sign that says, the yellow sign that says Century Farms. What we found through our research is that your families that are being honored today did have land in 1920 and also had land in 2020. So if you want to carry that further, and if you still own the property, you could get the Heritage Farm designation. There's also availability of a next level, which is the Heritage, which is 125 years. If your farm qualifies for that, this is another sign. And then there's the Legacy, which is 150 years. I'm not sure that there are any farms in that time frame yet, but there should be some in 125. We've enjoyed this process. Russ and I spent a lot of hours going through lists and cross-checking.
There was some rum involved.
Quite a bit. So we'll apologize if there was any errors or omissions. The problem we had in proving lines were family ownership lines were when families, a daughter was given land from a father and the names changed and we couldn't recognize the names. So we tried to do our due diligence as best as we could to prove everybody, but we were working with 1920 records to start with. So if there is any question with regards to ownership and century registration, give the RM a call, speak to Carrie. Carrie will take your particulars and we'll get back to you. I just wanted to mention something.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. The province and the RM worked with us extensively. Everybody helped with the project. We got funding from every level of government. The first choice for the monument was actually limestone, because limestone is a big part of our municipality, but we ended up with granite because limestone just couldn't work for the project. And that was thanks to Northern Lights. They worked with us from the beginning to the end on that monument to make sure that we had the right monument in the right place, and they did all the work installing it. Thank you to them. I'll let Russ talk some more.
If you want to see what the province sign looks like on Road 85, Kenny Pusechnik is proudly displaying the sign at the entrance to his property, just a mile in, off of highway number 12. And his property goes back to 1900, is that correct? 1900, which means in a year he qualifies as a heritage farm. He's currently a century farm. And there are other properties here that already qualify. And if anybody's interested in looking for help doing that process, Randy's an expert. I want to go by, I just want to go by, it's the history that I really, really like, and reading the stories in that big book there, and a lot of what's in there is very relative to a lot of the families here that came. The first settlers came around 1883 to the Brokenhead area, which is way up by Dencross Corner, and that 1883, and the longest name, the name of the family that's still, they're not on the farm, but 1883, Dugard. That's the longest surviving name that I know in the area. If I'm wrong, if anybody wants to correct me, get a hold of me. So, and in terms of the longest name on the property for the Heritage family names, that would be Toll, T-O-W-L-E. And so I'm going to read a little bit from the Toll history that's in that book there, because it's really appropriate not just to the Tolls that came here in 1891, but to a lot of the European settlers that started coming here 1896 and after. So this was from an interview. When they wrote this book, there was a lot of university students who interviewed people and then wrote their stories. Mr. Toll says that their farm was covered by heavy timber. There was nothing cleared. His father had to clear enough land to put in a small garden. They owned a team of oxen, which they used for clearing the land. The smaller trees were chopped down with an axe. The larger trees had to have their roots cut all around, and then a rope was tied near the top. Then the tree was pulled down by oxen. It was very tedious work, but there was no other way to do it. Mr. Toll says that on average 10 acres of land was cleared every year. There was a small woodlot at the southwest corner of the farm. There were very large trees in it, and only within the last few years the trees were sold for lumber. Although the stand was not very large, there were so many trees on it that the sawmill was going all winter. Mr. Toll now regrets that the trees were cut. Mr. Toll also mentions that the land between the house and the road west of the farm produced 3 carloads of wood some years back. And so there's more to the story. And another story that I really like or a book that I really, really like was this book. So I don't know, any people here have this book written by Carmel Schreier, On the Bank of the Brokenhead? It's really interesting because it not only deals with the early 1900s history with, that would be her grandfather, John, it's written by John, the journals of John James Schreier. And, that reminds me, is Dave Cole here? Dave Cole. No, Dave Cole. I just want to acknowledge Dave Cole because he took the written land titles records that we had from the archives and transcribed them into an Excel file so we can search and change and alphabet, and do our research in, like, what did I say, 1,786 entries? So how many people here know Dave Cole? So when you see him next time, thank him for doing that work for our project here. It was a monumental task. That's a pun. Some people got it. And so I'm just going to read a little bit from Carmel's book, Along the Banks of the Brokenhead, because it's just sort of, in each chapter she's got a section or from her grandfather's journal. It's going that way. Here we go. So these stories are really interesting, and this one is really interesting because this wasn't, I remember, like Mr. Toll remembers that. This was written each year in his journal. He wrote a summary of the year's activities, political, their family, we saved enough money from logging along the Winnipeg River to buy a barn and a tractor, and that really changed. A lot of the families came out here, and they didn't just clear trees and farm. They had to go work out, and so it really tells the story of the heritage of a lot of the settlers in the area. My father, Anton Schreier, and my mother emigrated from Galicia, Austria on the 19th day of April 1896. They arrived in Canada on the 11th day of May at the port of Quebec. They brought with them 4 daughters and 4 sons. I was their next child, John James, who was not born actually until 1897. They arrived at the Winnipeg Canadian Pacific Railway Station on May 18th. My father left the family at the Immigration Hall and took the train for Beausejour the next day. He had an uncle there and was in a hurry to settle down. He had been a farmer in Austria, and that's what he wanted to do in Canada. In the meantime, my mother was left at the Immigration Hall and did not know when he was coming back. There came a man to the hall while he was giving the children their dinner. He asked if they were all children, and asked if they were all her children. And he told her that if they had $600, they could buy 80 acres just a half mile north of the Canadian Pacific Railway Station. He went with her and showed the place to her. They met the family that wanted to sell, and my mother was very happy. She felt that if my father came back before these people sold the farm, they would buy it. But my father came back a week later, and by then the man had sold the farm. Thank God, because they ended up coming out here. In the earlier years, a family could stay at the Immigration Hall for 10 days to 2 weeks at the most. The time was up. With my father's family, he bought tickets from the CPR agent in Winnipeg for Beausejour. When the family arrived in Beausejour, there being no place to stay, he rented a team of oxen and a wagon, and it drove about 4 miles from town. Well, there was no town actually. It was Beausejour Station, where his uncle had a small shack. The small children and my parents slept in the shack while the older children slept on the wagon. The next day they got as far as Ladywood, which was 9 miles from the town of Beausejour, and there they stayed in the school at night. In the daytime they had to stay outside and hide from the rain beside the wall that was dry. In other words, if the rain came from the south, they stood under the north wall. If it came from the west, they stood under the east wall. There was a lot of tough stories like this. Your families, I'm sure a lot of families here had tough stories like this. In the meantime, my father applied for a homestead. He got the land but did not want to live on it as it was too far from the main road. The best places close to town were taken up by people that came from England. There were about 36 families living by the road along the Brokenhead River. None of these river settlers had ever plowed land. They were not farmers. They lived mostly by fishing and hunting. That's where my father bought his land from an English settler. He bought 120 acres at $2 an acre. There was a small shack on the land, about 100 acres of solid timber, mostly poplar and 80 to 100 feet tall, and 20 acres of slough grass. The shack was a building of the dimensions 20 feet by 15 feet. There was a room for a stove and 1 bed, so my mother and father started building another house so that all of the family could be protected from the rain, especially from the mosquitoes. Wonderful book. If you ever have a chance to get a hold of this, I've actually gotten permission from Carmel at one point to digitize this book and make it available online, but it's now out of print. There were some copies available, and I was waiting for it to go to print. It's a read worthwhile because it's the history of a family throughout a lot of years. Really interesting. Unfortunately, Ed Schreier's not here, I don't think, or is there Eddie? Oh, Ed is here. Ed? Ed is here. All right, there's Ed. I'm sorry. Ed Schreier, for those of you who don't know, is our past Governor General, and he still owns the property. It was not the first property that his grandfather settled on, or great-grandfather? No, grandfather. It was the second property that I haven't been able to determine what year, but it would have been around 1898, before 1900. I know it was before 1900 that the second property that Ed still owns. So well over 100 years. And would that be 125? Yeah. So that farm actually qualifies for heritage status. So the last thing that we want to do on our program, because I know it's hot, and is we are going to actually do a roll call. You remember being in school? You know, your name was called, and you'd put your hands up. So Randy and I are going to read names here, and what we'd like.
The names that are going to be read are for the 100-year families. So there may be cousins, and there may be brothers, and there may be further down the line, but all the names from that family, anybody that's down line of that family has been recognized, and we're going to say
anybody who is here representing that family, whether it's the same last name or not, when we call the name, we'd like you to raise your hand showing that you're a representative of that ancestry.
whether it's a cousin, whether it's a brother, whether it's a relative, but when we say one name like the Boleshchuks, if there's 5 people who are downline of the Boleshchuks, please raise your hand.
Backman, Baker, Batenchuk, Boschke,
Black. Yeah. Boleshchuk. Bursovich. Breeze. Broza. Way in the back. Yes? Bukowski. There should be a number of them. Yes. Could you also verbalize, like yell yes or here or whatever? It makes it easy for our school teacher to keep the attendance right.
Bush,
Louder.
Plus,
Yep.
Charney, Chapelski. Yell here.
Oh, here.
Charney,
Kraplivy. Dalkey. Doncho. Iwashko. Iwashko's from Hazel Glen, right? My hometown, Hazel Glen. Nope. Dimitarek.
Mitrowski. Don't hear it here, okay. Golombioski. All right, good turnout from that family. Greschuk. Halagroski. Hastman. Is there a Hastman?
Yes, over there.
We didn't tell you there's a prize for who yells the loudest. Makes it easier.
Now you tell us.
Extra donuts.
Kladoon.
Yeah.
Holigroski.
Yeah.
Pollock. Corbody. Yay! Harushko.
Here.
Yes.
James. Joba.
Here.
Kazina. Keelback.
Yep. Here.
Claprat.
Here.
More people from Hazel Glen. Kloss.
Here.
Yay! Klim. Colton.
Kowalczyk. Krawchuk.
Krebs. Christian.
Yep.
Kubis. Kulbaba. Kuzmak.
I would say yes, technically you could say that too.
Yeah.
Lachowski. Lahosky. Lanaway. Loshik. One, yeah, one. Lehman.
Litke. Luchician. Mariusz. Mariusz. Martini. Matejczyk.
Mazer. Majeski.
There!
And Modrzejewski. Is that correct?
Modrzejewski.
Majeski, both. Okay. Mosel.
Yeah.
Mosel, Ron. Naraki. Yeah. Niduzak.
Nowakowski. Omachinsky.
Yay!
Ottenbright. Pasechnik. Peach.
Peich. Paluk. Pescatellis.
Get a prize.
Yes. Pleskach. Popiel.
Yes.
Shidnovic. Richard. Where's Richard?
Ratai. Rex Siedler.
Here.
Real. Richter. There was a here for Richter. Ryback.
Saluk. Shady. Shavy, yes. Schreier. Schultz. Schrader.
Shumalak. Singbell. Semchuk. Small. Smith.
Smolinski. Stoska. Stefanyuk.
Yeah.
Louder. Steffes. Strecker.
Swirsky. Sweetek. Szajewski.
Yay!
Yeah, oh, okay. Toll. Turner.
Urbanski. Westlak. Winkler. Wirch. Rekreshchuk. Zapatoski. That's the 101 names that are registered on the monument.
So I just want to mention that the spelling of the names that we have on the monument, on the most part, was current spellings, unless the landowner that we were in contact requested a heritage spelling. But again, I'm going to go back to my cousin Kenny over there. He spells his name with vowels, but I came across in records 4 different spellings of his name, and the very first spelling never had a single vowel. So a lot of the names, if you look at the original names on the tax records, are very, very different. I'd like to thank everybody for coming here, and now if you just want to mix and take pictures with the monument, and we have cake. What do we have here? Well, the cake is here. Oh, we're doing pictures. Yeah, okay. We're doing official cake cutting pictures, so you got to sit for a few more minutes.
Everybody that's here because you made that project of ours worthwhile. We never envisioned this many people. Thank you very much.
I did.
On behalf of the Broken municipality, I would really like to thank both Russ and Randy for all the hard work that they did. Before they started this project, they both had black hair. So I'm sorry in advance. Please.
Because I was dying.
Yeah, I also want to thank both Russ and Joan Cabrera and Randy and Iris Bialik and Carrie Bialik for all the hard work that they did setting up this day. Thank you very much. Stay around, have some cake and mingle.